Well, hello, welcome to I Love Gay today. And we are with someone I can actually truly call a friend that I have come to know over many, many years. We're with Justin Ayers. He's the CEO and co-founder of equalityMD. How are you, Justin?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to see you, Matt.
Oh, you too. You know, it's interesting. And even before we dive into what you're doing as a business, you and I met almost 10 years ago or so. But
Yeah,
it was really it feels like, several lifetimes ago because we were doing that event in New York, the LGBT week. And it was all about kind of bringing together folks for to learn about advertising, marketing, and all topics in between. And you were there under, very different, one would say, very different auspices to what you're doing with Equality MD now.
that's
But it
true.
really wasn't. You were in the world of LGBT marketing and media out of
Yeah,
Virginia.
that's right.
Yeah.
I went to that marketing conference. I think was that the first one that you did, the LGBTQ week?
That was the first one where we turned it into a week. We had done like a
Yeah,
single day conference, and finally it started to grow, so we expanded that into a week.
yeah. I went up there for because we had a marketing and media company based out of Richmond, Virginia,
Yeah.
called started out as Unite Virginia and then became Q Media, and we published magazines. We hosted events. We hosted the first same-sex wedding show in Virginia's history, even before marriage equality was legal, because we saw the writing on the wall economically and just culturally, it's the right thing to do. And we had my friend Mark Herring, who was then Attorney General, open up the whole ceremony by giving some remarks. So
Yeah.
then I got to go travel around the country speaking to corporations about their LGBTQ marketing initiatives. And I started off by saying, basically, can you define what the letters in LGBTQ mean? And almost nobody could, which was interesting, but
Yeah.
they were willing to learn, which was encouraging.
Yeah.
And it's sort of grown from there.
No, it's interesting because then, over time, and you had evolved from that, and I know that you started the Virginia LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and there was just it was almost like you really came to represent all things LGBTQ when it came to the business world of Virginia.
I That happened accidentally. Quite honestly, I was a healthcare trial lawyer in DC, defending insurance companies. Lost my job as all young attorneys did in the Great Recession in 2009, is when that happened. Started a coffee business, which accidentally became a safe place for LGBTQ youth at a big mall in Williamsburg, Virginia, outside my alma mater, William and Mary. And then I opened in Richmond, Virginia, a restaurant and nightclub called 2113 Bistro, and the head of the Richmond Gay Community Center, now called Diversity Richmond, Bill Harrison, approached me and said, "Can you form an LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce here in the state's capital?" And I thought, why not? And that's
Yeah.
really where it started, creating that from scratch, growing it to over 100 business members and 5 corporate sponsors in a year, and then taking that to what basically New York and talking to folks at NGLCC, which is the National LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. They have a second headquarters there, becoming more involved with NGLCC in every aspect and working with other chambers, and really realizing that the only way to grow any kind of business is by connecting and networking with others and building authentic, meaningful relationships.
Yeah, spoken like a true entrepreneur. And but no, and I agree with you. That's really it. It's the one thing is people do business with people that they like,
Yes.
and even though we have all this technology and so forth that has become so dominant in so many aspects of our life, but at the end of the day, it's still, and that's what I remind people when it comes to how to use technology successfulit's that always remember there's a person on the other end of that screen.
That's right. I couldn't agree with you more. The tech it's a wonderful tool. We all love it. We all use it. It's made our lives easier. We are more connected. But
Yeah.
that face-to-face interaction, that handshake, that look in the eye, that ability to have that friendship
Yeah.
that can turn into something more, help your business and help you network with other people. You can't replace that with a Zoom call, and that's why the chamber, in particular, was sort of my first entree into the LGBTQ marketing and media space, then consumer behavioral data analytics, and now LGBTQ healthcare.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. You could, I look at it more as like a segue. I mean, you've had this background, and as an entrepreneur, you were working in different fields that have continued to evolve, and especially marketing and media. That's really changed a lot. But to be able to take a lot of those skills, I know, take a lot of those skills and bring that together into what you're doing now, with Equality MD. You've got some great videos, but I would just say, yeah, tell us a little bit about what that's all about.
Sure. So we took Q Media that we started in 2015, and then in 2019, the companies that I was talking to about LGBTQ marketing initiatives, I was explaining to them that that's a great thing to do, but you really have to instill the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion into your corporate DNA. And unless and until you do that, you can't authentically engage the $1.7 trillion LGBTQ consumer market. So then they asked, what's the data on how your community behaves as a consumer base? And I said, well, that's really hard to determine because not everyone's willing to raise their hand and be counted.
Yeah.
So we decided to turn that media company into a consumer behavioral data analytics company, went through a Lighthouse Labs, the Richmond, Virginia Technology Accelerator, came out of that in the fall of 2019. And then we launched our minimum viable product, our MVP, in March of 2020 when COVID hit. And that completely changed the world. And nobody was really focusing on any work that we were trying to do. And they were all focused on healthcare, and for good reason. And I swore I would never go back to healthcare after the Great Recession sort of gave me the boot, and I saw how messed up our healthcare system is from the inside, defending insurance companies. But then I realized over the course of everything I'd been doing, from coffee business to restaurant, nightclub, to marketing media, to magazines and events, consumer behavioral data analytics, it all came together with equalityMD because, as you mentioned, it's about relationships. During that time span, from '09 to basically the pandemic in 2020, 2021, I built a very powerful network of relationships that were authentic and not just, oh, I met this one person once. I nurtured them and made sure that I stayed in touch with them, yourself included. And that allowed me to be able to realize that if we addressed the healthcare concerns of our community, that we can't change healthcare, but we can put a dent in it. And during the pandemic, there was one question that kept ringing in my head over and over. And when you're a lawyer, you're a counselor at law, but you're really a counselor at life. And I get questions from all walks of life, whether I want to or not. And the one question I've been asked more than any other from all across the country is, where can I find a doctor that makes me feel safe? And it was that question that made me realize, with this network I've created over 10 years or more, I have an opportunity and perhaps an obligation to tackle LGBTQ discrimination in the healthcare setting and make it more available to people so they can live the best authentic lives they can.
Yeah. And especially with the pandemic, you had really started that, I believe, kind of connecting folks or coming up with an idea of connecting doctors with LGBTQ patients and through an app, and all that, I would say, made complete sense. But you've even adapted that still, especially now with what's called the Cedars-Sinai Accelerator. And they've kind of taken you down a path that's really kind of embedded you, I think, much more in the health industry than ever before.
Very much so. So equalityMD started, we built an MVP. Well, first I assembled a small team and we shot for the moon, and knowing that we'd hopefully somehow end up in the stratosphere. And we built a full standalone telehealth platform. It was a two-sided marketplace where we brought on patients who are LGBTQ and providers who we received LGBTQ cultural competency training. We matched patients with providers based on the patient's personal needs and their intersectional identities. And the providers loved the fact that they were able to serve a population that's about 30 million people across the country. That includes every other underserved demographic, from racial minorities to military veterans. But they didn't know how, as providers, to engage this underserved patient community, a community that in 2016, the NIH described as a health disparity population due to unique healthcare issues and historic lack of access to care. They left off systemic discrimination from within the medical community itself, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. And so that product worked insofar as the patients that we had on our platform had never seen a doctor in their life because they were afraid of experiencing discrimination in a clinical setting. So the patients loved it, doctors loved it, but we didn't have all the bells and whistles to make it really something where providers could bring their entire practice on our platform, and we ran out of money. Yeah. And then we realized, based on patient feedback, provider feedback, we could do a very quick white label telehealth solution where one of our partners has a national network of providers in the mental health, primary care, and urgent care space. They've gone through the cultural competency training program we put together. And now we're about to soft launch that end of this month, early next month, and bring LGBTQ patients in the Southern California beachhead market onto that. Yeah. And we're in Southern California. I'm now in Los Angeles and West Hollywood because, as you mentioned, we just completed the Cedars-Sinai Accelerator, which is very highly competitive. They get about 1,000 applicants from across the world and take only 10 every year, only 5 from the US. And through that accelerator, we got to see how a large health system like Cedars-Sinai functions. And that was absolutely incredible. We got to meet everyone from the CEO down to the clinicians themselves and had interviews with them and spoke with them and tried to understand what their concerns were, because they understood that discrimination in a healthcare setting for LGBTQ people is a real issue. And too many people don't realize that, but it is.
Yeah.
And that's something that they needed help with, because they realized as a big entity, first of all, patients who are LGBTQ don't trust providers because of perceived discrimination, or they have experienced discrimination. 1 in 4 has experienced discrimination, causing 1 in 5 never to seek care. And when you group providers into a massive health system with all the red tape and bureaucracy, patients are even less likely to feel that they can trust that health system. So CEDARS brought us on to do that. We're doing an exciting pilot program with their brick and mortar LGBTQ center starting sometime early 2024. And they've also educated us on payer landscape, the health system landscape, and how to really navigate that. Because by working with large organizations like that, we can scale our ability to have a meaningful impact on the lives of our community from a healthcare perspective. And instead of having them avoid care or experience discrimination, we are empowering them to become the superheroes of their own healthcare story.
It's interesting. Healthcare brought to the LGBTQ community via technology and a layer of trust.
That's it. The ingredients are really simple,
Yeah.
but when you take ingredients like technology and trust, even training, those are big words,
Yeah.
and you don't just gain trust overnight. Again, that goes back to other business entrepreneurial experiences I've had that have allowed me to have that trust of the community and my team as well. We're all serial entrepreneurs. We all are excellent to team, and we coalesce well together. We work well together, but more importantly, we have lived the problem we're solving, and that sense of trust is something you just can't buy.
Yeah. I well put. And it's interesting. I've paid attention to you during the course of your careers at everything you're doing, but more recently through Chasing Rainbows, I interviewed Ben Stokes recently,
Oh yeah,
and and you were part of one of their success stories, and so I loved seeing everything kind of come full circle.
it's fun. We need investors. Every startup does,
Yeah.
and Chasing Rainbows and Angels are two of the more prominent LGBTQ focused VC firms, and they invest in companies that they see as scalable, and the investors that always look to the team and particularly the CEO to ensure that they are the right people to lead the company to achieve the results, both financially and from an impact perspective. And we're honored and blessed that both Angels and Chasing Rainbows has brought us into their fold as a portfolio company. And we are able to now connect with other portfolio companies with both organizations and see how we can help each other so we can be that rising tide to lift all boats for our community and for those around us.
You're surrounded by a lot of good people. So I look for it's kind of funny that you and I switched coasts, and now that you're in my
Yeah,
hometown and I'm out here on the not far from yours, and so but I look forward to being able to reconnect when I come back to LA, if you're still
yeah.
there.
Uh, I didn't think I'd be out here for more than the accelerator period. I drove cross country, which is a great thing. If you haven't done it, you absolutely should.
Yeah.
And I did not expect to stick around. But then when I realized the meaningful impact we could have within a health system like Cedars,
Yeah.
if we can accomplish something within a big organization like that, we can replicate that at other health systems across the country, other payer systems across the country, and ultimately with large corporations across the country as having equalityMD as an employee benefit for their entire employee base,
Yeah.
as in addition to serving individuals.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Well, like I said, I look forward to being able to reconnect and in the real world. And but
Yes.
no, in the meantime, I just think it's wonderful what you're doing, and I'm really glad we were able to carve out some time together so you can tell some of the story to our audience here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a wild ride, and it's going to get
Yeah.
even crazier, I'm sure. But we do our best. One thing that we really strive for is to make healthcare non-polarizing and non-political. Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with real people who have real lives and real issues,
Yeah.
and we're trying to just ensure that the underserved LGBTQ community feels safe in their healthcare system, in their providers, and that they feel confident in being able to go out and seek the care that they deserve, knowing that they'll receive a culturally competent provider, particularly in the mental health space, as that's what is the primary healthcare concern for our community. But of course, that has physical ramifications. So we're dealing with mental health and primary care to start, and I couldn't be happier dealing with those two issues, because that's if we can do that for our community, we can do anything.
Wonderful. I love this. So anyway, thanks so much for being here with us, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It feels good,
See ya.
so good. Coming back